The siren wasn't supposed to be behind him. Dr. Marcus Reed noticed it in the side mirror first, a flash of red and blue slicing through the rain, too close, too intentional. His stomach dropped. Not because he was guilty of anything, but because every second mattered, and he was already running out of them. Not now, he whispered, tightening his grip on the steering wheel. His phone buzzed again on the passenger seat. One word lit up the screen, all caps, no punctuation. Bleeding. Marcus pressed harder on the accelerator. The hospital was 6 minutes away. The patient had maybe 10 left. Rain hammered the windshield like thrown gravel. The city blurred into streaks of gray and neon as Marcus weaved through traffic, his mind running faster than the car. Femoral artery rupture. Massive internal bleeding. Pediatric trauma. He'd done the math already, done it 100 times in his head since the call came in. If he wasn't in that operating room in time, the child would die. The siren wailed louder. "Come on," Marcus muttered, glancing again in the mirror. The police cruiser was right on him now, lights blazing, horn chirping. He hadn't noticed how fast he was going. 90. Maybe more. He flicked on his hazard lights, hoping, stupidly, that would communicate something human. Something like "I'm not running, I'm racing against death." The cruiser swerved behind him, aggressive, commanding. The loudspeaker crackled. "Black sedan, pull over immediately." Marcus's chest tightened. He thought of the little girl on the operating table. 7 years old. Name, Emily. Blood type O negative. Tiny body wrapped in warming blankets, already pale, already slipping. He thought of the nurse's voice on the phone, cracking despite years of ER chaos. "Dr. Reed, we need you now." He thought of the clock. "I can't," he said aloud, though no one could hear him. "I just can't." The cruiser surged closer. "Pull over now." Marcus exhaled sharply, signaling, easing toward the shoulder. He couldn't risk a chase. Couldn't risk getting blocked in traffic or worse. He slowed, heart pounding, mind screaming. The car rolled to a stop beneath a flickering streetlight. Rain soaked everything instantly. He put the car in park and raised both hands before the engine had even fully cut. The officer door slammed. Then another. Heavy boots splashed through puddles. "Hands where we can see them," a voice barked. Marcus complied, palms open, visible, fingers spread. He had done this before. Not this exact moment, but the ritual of it. The posture. The tone. The assumption. "I'm a doctor," he said quickly, calmly, projecting his voice through the rain. "I'm on my way to an emergency surgery. My hospital ID is on my chest." A flashlight beam cut through the darkness, landing on his face, then his hands, then lingering just a little too long on his skin. "Step out of the vehicle." "Officer, please," Marcus said, forcing his voice to stay steady. "The patient is critical. I'm the attending surgeon. If I'm late." "Step out of the vehicle. Now." Marcus opened the door slowly and stepped into the rain. The cold soaked through his shoes immediately. He could feel the badge on his chest, the familiar weight of his ID clipped to his jacket, the words "trauma surgeon" clearly printed beneath his photo. The second officer circled the car, hand resting on his weapon. "Hands on the hood," the first officer said. Marcus did as told. "Do you know how fast you were going?" the officer demanded. "Yes," Marcus said. "Too fast. I'm sorry. I was called in for an emergency. I can explain." "You can explain later," the officer snapped. "License and registration." Marcus turned his head slightly. "They're in my wallet, back pocket. May I reach for them?" The officer hesitated, then nodded curtly. Slowly. Marcus reached back, every movement deliberate, pulled out his wallet, and handed it over. The officer flipped it open, eyes scanning. What's this? He asked, holding up the hospital ID. My ID. I work at St. Catherine's. Trauma surgery. The officer snorted softly. Aha. Marcus felt the familiar heat rise in his chest, not anger yet, but the pressure before it. The exhaustion of having to prove, again, that he belonged where he said he did. My patient is already on the table, Marcus said. She's bleeding internally. If I'm not there. The officer turned abruptly. You were driving recklessly. You could have killed someone. And if I'm late, someone will die, Marcus shot back, then immediately softened his tone. Officer. Please. Call the hospital. Verify me. I'll pay any fine. Just let me go. The rain intensified, drumming against the car, the street, the space between them. The officer stared at him, expression unreadable. Turn around, he said. Marcus froze. What? Turn around. Hands behind your back. No, Marcus said before he could stop himself. You can't. The second officer moved in instantly, grabbing his arm, twisting it back. Pain flared. Sir, stop resisting. I'm not resisting. Marcus protested, heart slamming now. You're making a mistake. My patient. Cold metal snapped around his wrists. The sound echoed louder than the siren had. Marcus closed his eyes for a split second. This can't be happening, he thought. Rain streaked down his face like tears he refused to shed. You are under arrest for reckless driving and failure to comply, the first officer said. Marcus laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. You're arresting me? You're arresting a surgeon on his way to save a life. Get in the car. Marcus was guided, pushed, toward the back seat of the cruiser. His phone buzzed again, muffled in his pocket, unreachable. Bleeding more. He swallowed hard. Officer, he said quietly, desperation creeping into his voice despite every attempt to contain it. Please. Just check who the patient is. The officer paused. Who the patient is, he repeated. Yes, Marcus said. Just check. The officer scoffed. What, you think she's someone important? Marcus met his eyes, rain dripping from his lashes. Yes, he said. The officer stared at him for a long moment, then shook his head. Get in. The door slammed shut. The world narrowed to plastic seats, the smell of damp fabric, the sound of rain and sirens and Marcus's own breathing growing too loud in his ears. His phone buzzed again. Then again. Then stopped. Marcus leaned his head back against the divider, eyes fixed on the blurred city lights beyond the window. He thought of Emily's small chest rising and falling under anesthesia. Of the monitor beeping steadily, too steadily, that false calm before catastrophe. Of the nurse watching the clock, knowing exactly how late he was becoming. He thought of how close he'd been. 6 minutes. Just 6. The cruiser pulled away from the curb. Somewhere, a clock crossed a line it shouldn't have. At St. Catherine's Hospital, the operating room lights burned bright. Dr. Angela Park stood at the table, hands already gloved, eyes locked on the exposed surgical field. Blood pooled despite suction. The anesthesiologist called out numbers that were dropping too fast. Where's Reed? Angela demanded. No answer, the nurse said, voice tight. He was 10 minutes out. Angela's jaw clenched. Page him again. The nurse shook her head. Straight to voicemail. Angela looked down at the child on the table. Too small. Too fragile. Her chest tightened. Prep for massive transfusion, she said. We're not waiting. Back in the cruiser, Marcus felt the vehicle slow, then stop. The officers spoke quietly in the front, radios crackling. Marcus strained to hear, pulse roaring in his ears. Hospital, Says he's on staff. Reckless endangerment. Wait, say that again. Marcus leaned forward as much as the cuffs allowed. One officer turned around, his face suddenly different. Paler. Tighter. What's the patient's name? He asked. Marcus's heart skipped. Emily. The officer frowned, turning back to his radio. Can you repeat the patient's name? Static. Then a voice, clear enough to cut through everything. Emily Carter. 7-year-old female. Daughter of. The officer's eyes widened. Marcus's breath caught. The radio voice continued, unaware of the moment it was detonating. The governor. The cruiser went silent. Rain still fell. The engine still idled. But something fundamental shifted, like the air pressure dropping all at once. The first officer slowly turned around. The governor, he said. Marcus nodded once. Yes. The officer stared at him, then at the cuffs. Oh, he said. It was a small word. Too small for what it carried. The second officer swore under his breath. Dispatch, the first officer said quickly into the radio, confirm attending surgeon. A beat. Confirmed, came the reply. Dr. Marcus Reed. Lead trauma surgeon. He's critical to the procedure. The officer's face drained of color. Marcus said nothing. He didn't need to. The truth had finally arrived, heavy and undeniable. The officer rushed to open the back door. Sir, doctor, there's been a misunderstanding. Marcus held his gaze, eyes blazing now. A misunderstanding, he repeated. My patient is dying. Hands shook as the cuffs were unlocked. We'll escort you, the officer said urgently. We'll clear traffic. Marcus was already moving, sprinting back to his car, rain forgotten, body running on adrenaline and fear and something darker underneath it all. As the cruiser's siren screamed again, this time in front of him, Marcus followed, praying the clock hadn't won. At the hospital, the doors burst open as Marcus ran through them, scrubs flying, shoes squeaking on the floor. They're crashing, a nurse shouted. BP's dropping. Marcus didn't slow. He scrubbed in faster than he ever had, hands moving on instinct, mind snapping back into razor focus. When he stepped into the operating room, Angela looked up, relief flashing across her face. About damn time, she said. Marcus didn't answer. He took his place at the table. And the world narrowed again, this time to something he could still save.